Today we're going to talk about
We're
something.
giggling at an inside joke. Don't worry about it.
Tommy's weird. Today we're going to talk
Risa's
about
weird.
a couple of cases that we're not even sure if they're real stories or not, but
their story is alright.
That inspired The Hills Have Eyes. Very creepy movie.
Ow. My neck hurts. Oh.
You see the lyrics. They've hung them high in bird tune, and likewise, a their kin, and the wind blows called on their bands as they tell wow.
She can't talk.
Well, it's like an old Hagin from the ballad of Sweeney Bean. Musical lyrics by Lionel McKellen, published by Lime Tree Arts and Music UK. It's from one of their old ballads. Apparently, they weren't very good at English.
Apparently.
Hagin. You try to figure it out.
I'm not even going to do it. Nope. 5 particularly gruesome Hollywood blockbuster films have featured a character known as Hannibal Lecter, otherwise known by his descriptive nickname Hannibal the Cannibal. If legend is to be believed, however, when compared with the exploits of one Mr. Sonny Bean, it may appear more appropriate to rename him Hannibal the Pussycat. Meow.
Alexander Sonny Bean was said to be the head of a 45-member clan in Scotland in the 16th century who was reportedly executed for the mass murder and cannibalism of over 1,000 people.
That's a lot of people. Shit. The story appears in the Newgate Calendar, crime catalogue of Newgate Prison in London. While historians tend to believe Bean never existed, or that his story has been greatly exaggerated, it has passed into local folklore and become part of Edinburgh tourism circuit.
According to the Newgate Calendar, little is known for certain about his early life. However, Sweeney Bean is believed to have been born in
Sonny
Bean has been born in East Lothian in the late 15th century and was a tanner by trade.
Poking me. Put away.
Shut up. I'll restart it again.
She's poking me with her finger. I'm just being dirty. Which one? Oh. Yeah, no, I got that. Latter part of his life is a little better documented following his relocation across country to Ayrshire and his marriage.
His father was a ditch digger and hedge trimmer, and Bean tried to take up the family trade, but quickly realized that he had little taste for honest labor. How dare you actually work for honest wage?
He left home with a vicious woman. Vicious, really? Named Agnes Douglas, who apparently shared his inclinations and was accused of being a witch.
Such a masculine name.
I put a spell on you. And now you're mine.
After some robbing and the cannibalization of one of their victims, the couple ended up at a coastal cave in Beninian Head between Girvan and Ballantrae.
Oh, I don't know.
Where they lived undiscovered for some 25 years. If I can talk.
Holy crap. She can't talk. The cave was 200 yards deep and the entrance was blocked by water during high tide.
The couple produced 8 sons and 6 daughters, 18 grandsons and 14 granddaughters. Various grandchildren were produced by incest between their children.
Gross. Lacking the inclination for regular labor, the clan thrived by laying careful ambushes at night to rob and murder individuals or small groups. The bodies were brought back to the cave where they were dismembered and eaten. Oh. Leftovers were pickled in barrels. Oh, God.
Graphic.
Very, very graphic. And discarded body parts would sometimes wash up on nearby beaches as part of the clan's way of making the people think a wild animal was responsible. Oh.
So, do you think... I was just thinking this. You remember those feet that they keep finding on the coast of, like, Oregon and Washington and Canada? Maybe there's other ones. Alright, the body parts and disappearances did not go unnoticed by the local villagers, but the Beans stayed in their cave by day and took their victims at night. The clan was so secretive that the villagers were unaware of the murderers living nearby.
Dun dun dun. As more significant notice was taken of the disappearances, several organized searches were launched to find the culprits. One search took note of the cave, but the men refused to believe anything human could live in it.
These bears. Mine, tigers, and bears. Oh my. You're supposed to say oh my.
That's because you didn't say it right.
Lions, tigers, and bears?
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. You gotta say it right. Gosh.
Frustrated and in a frantic quest for justice, the townspeople lynched several innocents, and the disappearances continued. Suspicion often fell on local innkeepers, since they were the last known to have seen many of the missing people alive.
One fateful night, the Beans ambushed a married couple riding from a fair on one horse, but the man was skilled in combat, thus he deftly held off the clan with sword and pistol. Why did you have to laugh? I was doing really well with that. Gosh.
The way you were saying it
ruined everything. I was trying to be dramatic.
Can't wait till we reach
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
The clan fatally mauled the wife when she fell to the ground in the conflict. Before they could take the resilient husband, a large group of fairgoers appeared on the trail, and the Beans fled.
Oh my God. With the Beans' existence finally revealed, it was not long before the king, likely James VI of Scotland, in tales linked to the 16th century, though other tales are from the 15th, heard of the atrocities from the survivor, and decided to lead a manhunt with a team of 400 men and several bloodhounds.
They soon found the Beans' previously overlooked cave in Benin Head, thanks to the bloodhounds. Upon entering the cave by torchlight, the searchers found the Bean clan surrounded by human remains with some body parts hanging from the wall, barrels filled with limbs, and piles of stolen heirlooms and jewelry. You think that's disgusting? You should see what Jeffrey Dahmer's house is like.
I don't want to know.
Thanks.
I don't want to know. There were two versions on what happened next. The most common of the two is that the clan was captured alive, where they gave up without a fight. They were taken in chains to the Tolbooth jail in Edinburgh, then transferred to Leith in Glasgow. Where they were promptly executed without trial, as they were seen as subhuman and unfit for one.
That's Fubar.
Yeah, super Fubar.
Sweeney and their fellow men had their genitalia cut off and thrown into the fires, their hands and feet severed, and were allowed to bleed to death. With Sonny shouting his dying words, "It isn't over, it will never be over." After watching the men die, Agnes, her fellow women, and the children were burned alive on the stakes from which they were tied to. This recalls. Okay,
Where?
I accidentally cut it off. This recalls.
Oh.
That's yours.
Oh. Are you sure? This recalls, in essence, if not in detail, the punishments of hanging, drawing, and quartering decreed for men convicted of treason, while women convicted of the same were burned. So basically, stay away from England and Scotland. Lots of weird shit happening over there.
I want to go to England.
I want to go to Ireland.
There was another claim that gunpowder was placed at the entrance of their cave where they faced the fate of suffocation.
Ooh.
Carbon dioxide.
The town of Girvan, located near the macabre scene of murder and debauchery, has another legend about the cannibal clan. It is said that one of Bean's daughters eventually left the clan and settled in Girvan, where she planted a dual tree that became known as the Hairy Tree. Hairy like hairy.
Maybe I have hair.
I messed up my hair.
After her family's capture and exposure, the daughter's identity was revealed by angry locals who hanged her from the bough of the hairy tree.
That's just crazy. Sonny Bean is often considered a mythical figure. Citing an account of 1843, Dorothy L. Sayers included a gruesome narrative in her anthology Great Short Stories of Detection, Mystery, and Horror. Gollong's 1928. The book was a bestseller in Britain, reprinted 7 times in the next 5 years.
A 2005 article by Sean Thomas notes that historical documents such as newspapers and diaries during the era in which Sonny Bean was supposedly active make no mention of ongoing disappearances of hundreds of people. Additionally, Thomas notes inconsistencies in the stories, but speculates that kernels of truth might have inspired the legend. From broadsheet to broadsheet, the precise dating of Swanee Bean's reign of anthropographic
I don't know, it's a word.
terror varies wildly. Sometimes the
Atrocities.
occurred during the reign of James VI, early 1600s, whilst others versions claim the Beans lived centuries before.
Viewed in this light, it is arguable that the Bean story may have a basis of truth, but the precise dating of events has become obscured over the years. Perhaps the dating of the murders was brought forward by the editors and writer of the broadsheet so as to make the story appear more relevant to the readership.
We now know that cannibalism was not unknown in medieval Scotland, and that Galloway was in medieval times a very lawless place. Perhaps nothing on the scale of the Bean legend took place, but every story grows and is embroidered over time.
Embroidered? Okay. The Sonny Bean legend closely resembles the story of Christy Cleek, which is attested much earlier in the early 15th century.
Let's see. The legend of Sweeney Bean first appeared.
Sonny.
Why don't you say Sweeney?
Because Sweeney Todd.
Oh, Chapbook's rumor magazine of the day, which today leaves many to argue that the story was a particular propaganda tool to denigrate the Scots after the Jacobite rebellions. Thomas disagrees, noting another. Well, that's you. I don't know why I cut it off there.
I don't know. Another cannibal story from Scotland, even more redolent of the Sonny Bean tale than the Christy Cleek story, is contained in the 1696 work of Nathaniel Crouch, a compiler and popular history writer publishing under the pseudonym Richard Burton.
According to folklore, his real name was Andrew Christie, a Perth butcher. During a severe famine in the mid-14th century, Hector Bauch records floods, murrain, and plagues of mice and rodents throughout their Scotland in 1340. Christie joined the group of scavengers in the foothills of the Grampians.
When one of the party died of starvation, Christie put his skills to work on the corpse and provided his companions with a ready meal. Ew.
The group developed a taste of human flesh as under Christie's leadership they began to ambush travelers in the passes of the Grampians, feeding on their bodies and those of their horses. It is alleged that before attacking, Christie would haul his victims from their mounts with a hook and a rod. This implement was the cliquet or crook from which he took his sobriquet.
I don't know. 30 riders apparently died at Christie's hands. Eventually, the company was defeated by an armed force from Perth, except for Christie himself, who supposedly escaped and re-entered society under a new name.
How does everybody get away with changing their name? I want to change my name. The earliest versions of this narrative are much less detailed, recording only Christie's cannibalism and his method of trapping prey. No mention is made of his accomplices or eventual fate.
Cheviot's Proverbs, 1896, mentions some folklore about the character who came to be known as Bugbear, or Boogeyman. They resorted to cannibalism at the instigation of their leader, Andrew Christie, a Perth butcher. This monster lay in wait for passing horsemen and dragged them from the saddle with a large iron hook fixed to a long pole, hence his nickname. It is said Christie Cleek died many years after, a married man and prosperous merchant in Dumfries. For centuries, the mere mention of the word Christie Cleek was sufficient to silence the noisiest child.
So, in other words, the boogeyman, like we know now.
I'm scared.
It's
I won't
better
sleep
than
tonight.
La Lorena.
I won't sleep tonight.
In this tale, the following happened in 1945, the year before James II of Scotland's death, about which time a certain thief who lived privately in a den with his wife and children were all burned alive. They, having made it their practice for many years to kill young people and eat them, one girl only of a year old was saved, and brought up at Dundee, who at 12 years of age, being found guilty of the same horrid crime, was condemned to the same punishment. And when the people followed her in great multitudes to execution, wondering at her unnatural villainy, she turned toward them, and with a cruel countenance said, "What do you thus rail at me, as if I had done such a heinous act, contrary to the nature of man? I tell you that if you did but know how pleasant the taste of man's flesh was, none of you all would prefer bear to eat it." And thus, with an impenitent and stubborn mind, she suffered to deserve death.
Is that Mark? Yeah. I wonder why he waved at me. Hector Bose relates that the infant daughter of a Scotch brigand who was executed with his family for cannibalism, though raised by foster parents, developed a cannibal appetite at 12 and was put to death for it. This was summarized by George M. Gould and Walter Pyle in Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine. That's not a curiosity.
Yes, it is.
No, it's crazy.
Parallels between Christie and Swanee Bean are obvious and insistent. One story may well have been rice, the other or both. They have been derived from a common source.
While Bean far exceeds his counterpart in terms of notoriety, the Christie legend does appear to be older. I totally lost where I was at mid-sentence. What's wrong with me?
Tales of the Bean family do not appear before the 18th century, but Christie's exploits are documented from the 15th century onward.
You see her beating me? It's awful. It's so painful. Hey, that's worse. Why are you messing up my hair? I am not your bitch.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Why do you keep doing?
For instance, Andrew of Windtown's, words I don't know, of Scotland, 1420, refers to a figure called Justin Cleek, I don't know, who during a time of, say, great default, that money were in hunger dead,
I hate how they
set up
wrote.
traps with the intent children and women for to slay, and swains that he might overtaw, and ate them all that he get might. A little later in the entry for 1341, Holinshed's Chronicles, 1577, reports in the same year, as some do write, or according unto other. Their
It's
English
very, very
is awful.
old English.
In the year following, there was such a miserable death both through England and Scotland that the people were driven to eat the flesh of horses, dogs, cats, and such, like unused kinds of meat, to sustain their languishing lives with all, yea, in so much that, as is said, what the fuck? There was a Scottish man, an uplandish fellow named Tristy-Cloak, spared not to steal children and to kill women, on whose flesh he fed, as if he had been a wolf.
See,
Oh my
like
god.
That's people that, like...
Don't read things from way back in the day. It's
So
you
like,
can understand it, but it's just like...
So I was trying to read
brain
that whole little thing.
hurt.
Like, I was trying to read this whole little thing. They've been hung them high in Edinburgh. And I'm like, what? It's like, hey, gain, H-A-E.
I don't even know what those words are. I don't.
T-A-E.
No clue.
It's like, what the hell?
Whatsoever.
So.
Ribbit. Everything.
So, do you guys think
Whatever
the
it
legends
is,
are
it's
true?
long and hard to
I think
pronounce.
they're true.
I think at least some of them are true.
Just like with the Sweeney Todd one, which I keep messing up.
Sonny!
I'm saying the Sweeney Todd itself.
Oh, yeah.
They actually found on the History Channel where this barber shop was that had its trap door. I think part of it's true. Anyways, like a
Dun
subscribe.
dun dun.
What would you like to see next? This is which day is this for?
This has been Teresa.
This is the
and
6th
Tommy.
day. This is for the 6th day of October. So this is the 6th Scaroween.
Someday soon we'll do other things.